I see that Gus is here. Hello, Gustavo.
Hello, how's it going?
Good to see you.
Nice seeing you.
For those of you who are just joining, we're just going to give it another maybe 30 seconds to make sure we have a good participation today and other folks are able to join, and we're going to go ahead and start. Thanks for your patience. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get the slow start going with our introductions and housekeeping items. Good evening, everyone. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Hannah Stelmakovich, and I am part of the facilitation team from the ILG. My colleague this evening is Kim Danka, and I don't know if you can see her, but she is waving at you right now. The ILG team will be facilitating this conversation. Our facilitation goals for tonight is to offer neutral guidance and capture community voices and priorities as you continue to implement your SERP program for Shafter. Our facilitation goal is to ensure that we stay on time and cover all the agenda topics that you identified as priority for this meeting. As always, we strive to keep the dialogue open, civil, and respectful. And as always, we're here to help you with any tech issues that you have throughout the meeting. If at any time you have any tech issues connecting, please feel free to pause this meeting, text me or Kim Danka privately in the chat, and we'll help you to troubleshoot in real time to the best of our abilities. Before we review the agenda, let's go back to our Spanish translation instructions to make sure. I'm going to pass it to Mari to make sure and double check that our all Spanish participants are set, connected to all different audio channels, and are able to participate.
Hola, otra vez, muy buenas tardes. Simplemente voy a explicar eso otra vez para que puedan ingresar al idioma español si es necesario y si todavía no lo han hecho. Simplemente busque el logotipo del mundo o el globo. Va a seleccionar Interpretation y luego seleccionar el idioma español o Spanish. Y luego, aparte de eso, va a oprimir el botón de Mute Original Audio y eso significa silenciar audio original. Y en caso de que tenga algún problema técnico, puede llamar al número de teléfono que está en la pantalla, que es el 844-867-6169 y el código de acceso es el 1659-666 o tecla o el número del signo de número. En caso de que tenga algún otro problema a través de la reunión, puede también ingresar ese comentario a través del chat. En este momento, ¿hay alguna persona que tenga alguna pregunta? Okay, no escucho nada, entonces podemos seguir. Hannah, you can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mari. Okay, let's review our agenda. What are we covering today? We're going to start with the SERP measures review. We're going to hear updates on several measures from the Air District, including vegetative barriers, urban greening, lawn and garden equipments, etc. We're going to then proceed with the pesticides measures update. We're going to have an open discussion with Department of Pesticide Regulation and Kern County Agricultural Commissioner regarding pesticide measures in SERP. We're going to continue with our traditional standing updates, where we're going to hear from partner agencies and the Air District. And then we're going to go with the wrap up and public comments. As always, each month we incorporate agenda items that this committee wants to hear and bring you partners, experts, and resource agencies that reflect your suggestions. And as always, we continue to refine these meetings as you go, and we'll look forward to collaborating with the co-host, collaborating with you at the agenda setting meetings to make sure that these meetings reflect your needs and priorities. Okay, I'm gonna pass it to my colleague Kim for the very quick virtual meeting etiquette review. For those of you who are here for the very first time or you don't participate on Zoom very often, here's a couple reminders.
Thanks, Hannah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Just a reminder to please stay on mute throughout the duration of the meeting, but you can raise your Zoom hand or type anything into the chat if you'd like to ask a question. You can always private message Hannah and I behind the scenes if you have any questions or comments, anything that you need technical help with. If you're using two different devices, you can merge the two using your unique participant ID. And it'll connect your audio with your video. And just a reminder to be respectful in the chat, and because it is public, we do publish it. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And that was me accidentally stopping the recording while trying to check the chat. Okay, so this meeting, just a friendly reminder, they're open to public. We're absolutely grateful for the public participation. There are various ways to participate in this meeting, but we will take and address all the public comments at the end of the meeting around 6:50, 6:55. So your opportunities for participation, next slide, please. Members of the public, you can join us on the Facebook. Welcome if you're there. Please feel free to type your comments throughout the meeting and we'll address and read those comments at the end of the meeting. Same instructions for the YouTube. For those of you who are on the YouTube, type your comments. We will address them at the end of the meeting. Folks who are on Zoom, welcome. You are welcome to submit your verbal and written questions at the end of the meeting during our public comment period. As always, renaming is incredibly important. My colleagues, Kim and Air District behind the scene are working to rename you folks, especially for those residents eligible for the stipend program. We want to make sure we capture everyone's attendance. And on that note, at the last meeting, we had a Zoom glitch where we were not able to capture those attendance. But folks, Philippa, Minerva, Zakora, we got you. ILG will be issuing the checks next week, so you will get your checks in the mail pretty soon. And with that, just want to reaffirm and ensure you that we are capturing all the attendance this time. Definitely, we learned about those new Zoom functions. And Annabelle, thank you for dropping in the chat the names of the folks who are in the audience. And if you also can turn on your cameras, so we can see you all, even if you're in the group, in the room, we would love to see your faces. That would be great. Okay, several housekeeping items before I pass it to our wonderful co-host, Gustava and Ryan. I just want to pause and reflect that this committee has been making incredible progress. You've been working together for several years. And if you look around in this virtual room, if you click on the participant list and see who's in the room, you're going to see a lot of partners who are here meeting after meeting, committed, invested, and present, and committed to making Shafter a better place to live, a place with cleaner air. AB 617 process is a unique process. It requires partnerships. It requires all of you come to the table and work together. So definitely sending thank you to the City of Shafter, Kern County, Department of Pesticide Regulation, all the state, local, and regional partners. I feel sometimes we don't take a pause and don't think for your continuous commitment. And as you continue to work together as a group in this CSC group and with other partner agencies, there are several elements that help you to make your discussions meaningful and dialogue respectful. And I would like to remind you about those elements. I don't like to call them the ground rules, but it's like this is what we all should strive to achieve: a more meaningful dialogue and meaningful discussion and respectful dialogue. Every single one of you can help achieve the meeting goals. When I say your participation is incredibly important because of your knowledge, your experience, everything you bring to the table. Share your personal truth, but also focus on solutions and opportunities they can deliver positive change. Be respectful and civil. It's okay to disagree, but please be empathetic and civil as we continue with these dialogues and finding solutions that work for this community. Attack the problem, never the person. I challenge you to respectfully challenge ideas and outcomes and never attack a person. Honor every person's humanity and dignity. And finally, there's a lot of you in the room. You're all different, and that's what makes this group so unique and wonderful. Building consensus and finding shared values will help you to achieve the best results for this process. So just a couple of reminders, how can we have these meaningful discussions and productive dialogues as we move forward with this meeting? Okay, so that's all for housekeeping and quick reminders. With that, I would love to pass it to our community co-host, Gustavo, and then to Ryan for his quick welcome. Gustavo.
Yes, how's it going? Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Gustavo Aguirre Jr. My name is Gustavo Aguirre Jr. I believe the vast majority of you know, we know each other already. Have the pleasure to know each other. I'm with Central California Environmental Justice Network, CCEJN for its acronyms, here in downtown Bakersfield. It's the pleasure of me being the second time I co-host AB 617 Shafter, so greatly appreciate that. And I very much look forward for today's conversation.
Thanks, Gustavo. Ryan.
Good evening, everyone. So nice to see you. I really want to start off by thanking everybody who participated in the open process that we held to select the future facilitation services. The Shafter Committee was probably the most represented of the committees in providing their input and feedback on that process. And so I just wanted to give you a huge shout out and just share our appreciation for you consistently always being involved. And it's a testament to how much the committee cares about the process and how much they desire and want to see it be successful and want to work towards that goal. So I just want to thank everybody for that. And at the same time, definitely want to share our thanks and appreciation to Hannah, Kim, and the Institute for Local Government and all of the great support and facilitation services that they've provided to the Shafter Steering Committee and all the other steering committees in the San Joaquin Valley over these last several years. And at the same time, we're very excited to start our work with our new facilitation service providers that's going to be working with all of you and kind of creating that path moving forward to implement the Shafter Community Emissions Reduction Program and the Community Air Monitoring Plan in the best and most informed way. So just thank you all, and I'm looking forward to hearing the discussion on tonight's topics on the agenda, and looking forward to discussing that with all of you. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ryan. I will say a couple words in the end, but let's focus and let's keep moving with our agenda. We have a busy agenda, and we are starting today with the SERP measures review. And as you know, my favorite document, a SERP tracker that Air District updates diligently online and sends out the Spanish copies to our Spanish folks, so you can have a paper copy with you. So just as always, Heather is gonna go over several measures and share with you some of the progress the district and you, this committee and partner agencies have been making on implementing these measures. So with that, I'm gonna pass it to Heather.
Hello, everyone. So nice to be here with you again this evening. I was going to hit enter. Now I can't see my chat. Boy, it's so different when you share your screen. We've discussed this for a long time. Monty, would you put the main link to community.valeair.org in the chat? The link that she is dropping in the chat is the link that will take you to this page right here on the screen. I just want to remind you, community.valeair.org. That's where pretty much everything AB 617 lives. And you don't have to remember anything specific, because right on that main page, you can jump into your community. And when you get into your community, the very first thing you see is the tracker right on the main page. Hopefully the packets arrived as they should have, and you'll have the Spanish ones printed and in front of you or available for reference. I'm going to pull open the English one. Can you see it? Yeah, cool.
Yes, Heather, we can see it. And our Spanish-speaking participants should have a paper copy they can refer to.
Correct. Thank you. Yeah, I zoomed in. I know I have trouble seeing small stuff too. This is our awesome tracker, doing our best to keep you up to date with the things that we are working on. A quick scroll through, and I get excited about seeing some of the numbers changing. It's been a long time coming. We've been working on this, but just right off the top there, I see the low dust harvester funding is going well. But just wanted to kind of scroll through it, remind you that it's there, touch on a couple things. Let me see what order they're going to come up first. We had a big measure at our governing board meeting just a couple weeks ago, talking about urban greening and vegetative barriers for all of the communities. And specific to the vegetative barriers item for you guys, did I already scroll past it? You know what, is Todd, are you here with me? Todd, do you want to give them a quick update, jump in and tell them what happened at the board meeting last?
You betcha. Hi, everybody. Todd Dion, Director of Grants and Incentives at the Air District. Yeah, as Heather mentioned, we took an item to our board in August to approve the urban greening and vegetative barriers items for both South Central Fresno and Shafter. As you recall, we had to prepare a project plan for CARB to approve these measures because they were not in the existing approved list of approved programs at CARB. So we had to take these through a process. We did get CARB approval in June, so the earliest we could take these to our board to get them approved and implemented was August, and we did that. The board approved those measures. The Shafter SERP includes $50,000 for urban greening. And the other key consideration that we took to the board was to eliminate the match requirement. And this was critical because it was really kind of throwing a wrench into some of the things that we've been wanting to do, particularly in Shafter. We've, with the best of intentions, we wanted to leverage this funding with other potential funding out there, and we still we want to encourage leveraged funding, wherever we possibly can. But what we found is it was more of a roadblock to getting some of these projects implemented. And so to eliminate that roadblock, essentially, we requested that our board eliminate the match requirement and make it more of a hope and a goal, and something that in an RFP process would score higher if leveraged funding was brought to the table in some of these projects, but not a requirement. So that is what happened. And so our next steps, as outlined in our board item, we're going to be releasing an RFP or a request for proposals here very soon. We're actually working on the language now, and then we'll accept applications. We'll rank and score those, and then fund the highest scoring projects that come out of that. Now, we've already been in conversations with this group, and with, particularly Linda has really taken a strong lead in getting a lot of movement in this area. So we definitely don't want to reinvent the wheel. And so, I think some discussions with anybody that's interested really at this point, I think we're going to reach out to Linda and maybe schedule a call with anybody who's on, this committee that's interested in being on that, and really kind of, see where we go from here, with the intent of moving this along quickly now that we have that broader authority to remove the match requirement, and move this program forward. So I'd certainly be happy to take any questions on that. If not, I'll hand it back over to Heather.
Great, Todd. Let's pause and take several questions. I see a hand from Linda, and I see a hand from Gus. Linda.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. This is such exciting news. Todd, when you say RFP it, I was just kind of confused. Does that mean, like, for example, the proposal that I put forth, any of those measures wouldn't be going forward? I was just confused on what the new program plan would be. Would parks and schools still be part of that?
Yeah. Yeah, like I say, so we designed our program sort of broadly between Fresno and Shafter. There is a requirement that we have to take it through this RFP process. But like I also said, we know that there's already been a lot of work done, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So we have to, and that's where I kind of want to have the discussion, with you and others that are interested to quickly move this forward. If we can do an abbreviated RFP, to really, understanding that we already have these proposals on the table, and get these things moving as quickly as we can. So we have to sort of, take it through a process, but what that process looks like is largely up to us and up to this group. So I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to make sure that we take into account all the work that's been done and the proposals that have been brought forth already, and make sure that we can move forward on those as quickly as possible.
Okay, to summarize before I go to Gus, so the next steps, Todd, you're going to be reaching out to the committee members to see if specific folks are interested on jumping on a separate call, perhaps some type of the subcommittee call, where the district already has some examples of RFP proposals in the work for various community, to see how that information can be applied to Shafter, how it can meet Shafter needs now that the match requirement has been officially eliminated and the urban greening has $50K to spend. Am I hearing that correctly?
That's a great summary, Hannah. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Gus?
Yeah, thank you. The RFP, Todd, that's for like potential folks that can make like a $50,000 project happen within like each of the 617 communities, both of like say Fresno and Shafter.
Yeah. The RFPs would be separate. We would do a separate one for Shafter versus Fresno, because there are certain dynamics that are different between the two communities. But yeah, it would be essentially a call for projects,
Okay.
for folks that want to propose a project within the community.
Right on. And I just have a quick suggestion. Can the Air District potentially like give examples, maybe not here, maybe later, but give examples of previous RFPs or some other projects that are very similar to this, and maybe the residents are interested in proposing projects or partners. So that's one. And I think another, so Felipa, who's a resident, has also been very vocal on urban greening and vegetative barriers. And so I would suggest her as a potential plug for a go-to as a resident. But yeah, maybe give examples of previous RFPs that have been successful, or that you guys seen that have been innovative in some way, that take Shafter's demographics and topography like into consideration.
Yeah, I think we can certainly do that. And again, we have, for the past, probably year and a half or more, we've already been discussing this issue, and we've already got some great ideas, and some very specific, locations and things like that. So I don't want to, completely discard all the work that's been done. I want to maybe see what we can do to incorporate, a lot of that into the RFP process. But yes, the individual that you mentioned, we'd be happy to include in any of these discussions.
I'm on mute. Thank you, Todd. Also, we have a comment in the chat from Bianca. The residents that we have here would like to participate in this, I assume, another meeting for urban greening, a separate meeting, but wondering the times when those meetings would be. Heather or Todd, will you please share if the committee can expect a doodle poll, how you will be setting up those meetings?
Yeah, definitely. Not necessarily a meeting yet. What we need to do is kind of get the wheels, well, we have the wheels turning, but get it a little bit more formalized. We're working on that RFP language. And then I suspect absolutely we will probably end up having some kind of subcommittee meeting or, collection time that hasn't been set forth yet. So we would work with Felipa and scheduling to get folks in the room so that we can review what we've compiled on this project. So no date yet. But definitely something we would interact with you before just kind of throwing a date out there.
Great. Okay, so as our district is working on the formalizing language, there's a request to share some of the RFP examples so interested folks can get a jump start on learning about different RFPs that are out there, and stay tuned for an additional meeting in the future. Anyone on the Spanish line, a question for Todd or Heather about urban greening SERP measures from the Spanish-speaking participants?
Okay.
Guys, anything to add before we move to the next SERP measure?
No.
Excellent. All right, Heather, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Jumping back to the tracker, which I noticed needs updating because lots have happened since we sent this one out. But the exciting part that I want to show you is this one. And I want to talk to you about, oh, I'm going to do it again. It's so, it's fun to sort through the tracker and get lost. I've done it a few times. Sorry if you've done it too. Oh, I did. I think I passed it. I'm trying to find the lawn and garden one because I want to talk to you about clean green yard machines and tell you what we have in store for you. Thank you to those of you. There it is. Thank you to those of you. Here it is. There it is. Woo, this one right here. Thanks to those of you that responded to the poll, kind of looking for dates. We have made great progress. We've got a date in mind based on your feedback, and that date is Sunday, November 7th. Sunday, November 7th. We heard clearly that here, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see your faces. That a Sunday actually was probably even better than Saturday, because that's the options that were in the doodle. So Sunday, November 7th is our target for what we're going to call a lawnmower trade-in event. Based on all the stuff we've been discussing here as a CSC. Brian and Todd and I are working with the team through the details. What we have established is it'll be at Floyd's. We'll be able to take old mowers. That's really the key to this event, is being able to sort of eliminate the barrier of having to drive in and get rid of your mower at a dismantler. And, fill out some paperwork, exchange information, and then leave that same day with a mower, a replacement fully electric mower. And then, the transaction has occurred and it's done. And those are the details we're vetting as far as things we're concerned about and trying to do, and looking for maybe additional feedback as you have ideas. Reaching out to the public ahead of time. We're crafting a marketing plan to announce the event, and more specifically, maybe drill into the postcard that we mail out, but looking to get information ahead of time, try and see what kind of interest we can garner just to get a sense of the feedback we might have that day. And then go through the details, get it all orchestrated, maybe call a radio station, do that sort of thing. But have the ability to communicate to all of the Shafter area that this opportunity is coming, that they can take in their old mower and get a new mower all on the same day. We do think we'll entertain those folks that maybe want to go shop for their own mower and have some specifics that they're interested in that they maybe couldn't accomplish on that day. We could still take their old mower. So we're even going to go that far as to be a source to maybe somebody bought theirs ahead of time, a couple weeks out, or just was looking to get to the dismantler. We talked about being able to receive those too. So those are the things we're working through, but we're very excited about sort of locking in that date and moving forward with the plan. Do you guys have any questions?
Okay, so any questions about November 7th lawnmower replacement event, or even better, any ideas, any suggested ideas how the Air District can better promote this event and increase participation?
I think there's a comment on the chat. How many families is Air District ready to help? Is there a figure?
Yeah, so the figure in the measure that we established as a committee was 100 units to trade out. I don't think there's a hard cap on that. We've discussed, many times in this forum that we can be flexible in this regard. I think if we had incredible interest, we might get more on stock than 100, but we're reaching out to vendors to find a vendor that would also provide that in hand on site that day so that we could, give up to that many away and then go from there.
And then the time frame on November 7th?
So right now we're throwing it around 11 to 2 roughly. It sounds like a small window of time, but what we anticipate as we kind of get through more details, potentially, not sure this is what we'll land at, but maybe if people do communicate with us and sort of lock in ahead of time, maybe we have them come a little earlier since we've collected their info and they've already been processed. And then we just advertise this window of time that you can come out. We won't obviously kick folks out at the closing time, but that would at least be the target with which they would need to find them getting themselves down to the site. 11 to 2, I think, is our target at the moment.
Cool. And then I do have some suggestions on like marketing or outreach. I would definitely, like, if you guys have no one at the Air District that, I know you guys have a Bakersfield office, so I don't think this should be relatively hard, but like there's at least 4 or 5 locations that I know where like there's high traffic. Like these are food markets, gas stations, and a couple of restaurants in like the downtown Shafter area. They get tons of traffic that, would be, I think, very good to put like a poster, if you will, put the date, the time, and like what it is, right? So I think and I know Anabel and Felipa Socorro, I'm sure they have like suggestions, but there's a couple places that I've been traveling to Shafter for several years now, and there's it's been evident that there's a lot of traffic in these certain places for those folks that might be particularly interested. So I definitely think putting at least 1 or 2 posters out in the community will be beneficial for sure.
We're also, I think, going to try, Gus, and see if we can't get physical flyers in home. I know that everybody's moved to the digital stuff, but we'd love for stuff to go home in backpacks to all the students in the area. Yeah. And I need to correct myself. If I were still sharing the screen, you all would have caught me. I used the 100 number out of our tracker. That was the wrong unit. It's $100,000. Apologies. Our goal is 280 units. Thank you, Todd. But at minimum, our plan was to have 100 on hand, was still our sort of the target at this point in the game, not having collected any feedback or, done any interfacing in the community yet. But we would love to have the problem of 100 not being enough. Yeah.
I do see a note. Thank you for referencing the tracker. I do see a note. There's 5 units that have already been claimed for 2,500-ish figure. Okay, cool. So what's the minimum break or the average breakdown per unit?
I don't have that, Todd, mind, but I couldn't even guess at that. Between 400 and 500, Todd?
That is a good question since these are paid for at 100%. Yeah, it's probably $400 or $500, I think.
The other thing,
our typical incentives are 250, but these are 100% paid for, so probably around that $400 $450.
And in order to sort of support people in volume like that, we probably will narrow down to one manufacturer just to have supply on hand. They're not obligated to take that manufacturer, certainly. They could shop around and not do it that day. But that'll ease the process and allow us to facilitate quite a bit of trade out.
Great, thank you. Excellent ideas. Gus and Linda is dropping additional suggestions for outreach for this event, including Shafter Press, Next Door site.
Oh yes,
Shafter Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for that, Linda.
Guaranteed. Those are the good news is we're in Next Door, so I don't have to pay additional, and I absolutely can do that. Probably even set up an event. And yes, those are all wonderful ideas. And Colonia Mexicana, got it, Gus.
Thank you. Let's circle back to our Spanish-speaking participants to see if that wasn't me this time. Folks on Espanol line, any additional outreach suggestions for the Air District or any questions around loan replacement event on November 7th?
Ooh, I see Bianca's question. I'll go ahead and answer that. Bianca, yes, we definitely have that program. The details of the lawnmower trade-in event won't necessarily address if you wanted to come buy a string trimmer, but we'll all be there. We can explain it. We can talk about it. We can get them applications started, that sort of thing. It won't be a trade out day for those pieces of equipment, but by all means, we can facilitate getting folks through that piece of the program too. So option one, just so you all understand, Clean Green Yard Machines has two main options. Option one allows residents to get a mower, an electric mower, when they turn in their old one, and that's the big, like we're going to cover the whole cost for a Shafter resident. And then option two allows residents to receive a $50 rebate on, I think, a string trimmer, a edger, I've lost track, pole saw, Todd's nodding. Most of the other electric lawn equipment products, you get a smaller rebate, you don't turn in anything existing, and you just get money off, sort of incentivized to go electric with your purchase.
Any other questions from Spanish-speaking participants? And Bianca, I saw your hand. I'm going to circle to you back in just a moment. And not Bianca, Linda, I saw your hand. And Bianca, yes, we saw your questions in the chat. But let's pause and see if there's any questions from the Spanish-speaking folks or on the phone line.
We don't have any questions at the moment.
All right, thanks, William. Linda, what was your question or suggestion?
Oh, it was just another one. I don't know, Heather, if you wanted to reach out to the city of Shafter. They have a newsletter, I think, that goes out on Fridays via email. Maybe that would, I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but maybe we could ask them. And then I was also wondering, for us community members, if we could get a copy of the English and Spanish, and maybe we can put things up and say our social media to help spread the word through town.
Oh yes, absolutely. And in fact,
okay.
Thanks for reminding me, Linda. That's what I'll do. With the consensus here, and we're moving forward, we will produce obviously the next steps. We will produce the outreach piece and the flyer and things, and I'll get that in front of you guys. So one, you can give me feedback, and two, then once it's approved and official, help be our disseminating ambassadors to get the word out. Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
And I just dropped into chat the link for those of you that can jump over and look at it. You certainly can share that link anytime now. Nobody has to wait. The obstacle that we were talking about was getting rid of your mower, but if you wanted to buy the trimmer or the pole saw, get the rebate, start doing that stuff now. That's the link, and it's totally possible.
And that's in response to Bianca's question, right, Heather?
Yes, Bianca was asking about application for string trimmer. Yes, we would have all of that stuff handy. We're investigating, we're still in the planning stages, investigating Wi-Fi and connectivity, and maybe bringing tablets and being able to show stuff and interact with customers, while we've got them on site if they came to trade out a mower. So yes, the plan would be to at least accommodate with them with all the information possible while we have them there.
Great, thanks, Heather. Guys, I see your hand, and Heather, there's another question from Angie in the chat. If this event is residential or commercial as well?
Residential, purely residential.
Guys.
And this is only for, my question is only, this is for the 7-mile radius, right? Folks that are in the 7-mile radius, okay.
Correct. Exactly.
Any other questions for Heather about the lawnmower replacement event before we move on to the next item? Looks like I don't see any hands. Anyone on the Spanish line?
No question at the moment.
Thank you. Well, definitely exciting news. You guys are moving forward on this measure. 280 units is definitely a better goal than 100. And thank you for, thank you for all your wonderful.
Keep me honest, it's good.
outreach ideas. So the action items from this discussion, the Air District will share the social media language and the flyer for you to get the feedback on that language, on that promotional piece. And also we'll share those pieces when they're completed, share it with you so you guys can help with the outreach and promotion. And meanwhile, if you can think of any other outreach channels, how can we reach the residents? Email it to Air District. Okay, guys, anything else before we wrap up and move to the next item? We're good? Excellent. Heather, what's next on your list?
All right, let me go back to the tracker. I think for our major updates, oops, actually what I really was doing is pulling up the application. I think we should have a little 411 application day too. Back to the tracker.
Right, we have 5 minutes before we're scheduled to move to the next agenda item, so share away.
We're good. Actually, what I wanted to do was see if there were any outstanding questions. We definitely have the standing updates to address anything else. I think we're good, Hannah. I might just close it and we move on.
Great, thank you, Heather. Again, check out the tracker. You don't have to wait until the monthly meeting to see where you are with your SERP measures implementation. And those agenda setting meetings is a wonderful, wonderful space to kind of highlight which measure you would like to discuss in more depth at the next committee meeting. So you're always encouraged and welcome to attend agenda setting meetings, which are optional, but you're welcome. We're doing excellent on time. Next, we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is pesticide measures update. So this is really about open discussion with the Department of Pesticide Regulation and Kern County Agricultural Commissioner regarding pesticide measures in your SERP. As I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, AB 617 is a very unique process because it requires collaboration. It requires partners to be willing to come to the table and to engage. So thank you, DPR folks, and thank you, Commissioner, for being here today. So first, we're going to hear from the DPR about their statewide notification system work and their efforts to implement this statewide notification system, and specifically how it will benefit Shafter community. We're going to have Karen Morrison, Acting Deputy Director for DPR, presenting for you folks first. And then we're going to hear from the Kern County Ag Commissioner, Glenn Funkhauser, and it's going to be your chance and opportunity to ask questions and have that discussion. Okay, I'm going to pass it to Karen. Karen, hello and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here and to be talking with all of you this evening. So as you know, the department is responsible for regulating pesticide sales and use in California, and that takes a number of different forms in terms of our continuous evaluation of pesticides, our partnership with the county ag commissioners for our boots on the ground, enforcement of pesticide regulations, safety requirements, and training, and our work on advancing sustainable pest management throughout the state and the encouragement of safer alternatives for pest management. I think, as you all know, we received quite a bit of additional funding as a part of the 21-22 budget to be able to bolster that work for sustainable pest management, environmental monitoring activities, and strengthening our enforcement and community engagement work. As particular note, and Hannah mentioned this, we also received $10 million in the state budget to begin the development of a statewide pesticide notification system. And I just want to acknowledge that the work of this group and other communities has really catalyzed the statewide conversation about notification, and it's paved the way for our work and commitment to the statewide system. And it will ultimately include all California communities that are impacted by pesticide use. Our goals as a part of the statewide pesticide notification system are to provide outreach and education around pesticide use, to make sure that that information is provided transparently and equitably, and so that individuals can then access information about certain pesticides that may have the potential to harm human health. And we think that this will provide an opportunity for people near pesticide application sites to take additional precautions to avoid potential pesticide exposure. And so in order to guide the development of the statewide system, we hosted a series of focus groups last month for community residents and groups, regulatory agencies, growers, and regulated industry, with the purpose of gathering insight toward the development of this statewide notification network. And these meetings were designed as listening sessions for DPR to hear stakeholders' thoughts and concerns about both the benefits and challenges of developing a statewide notification network, as well as to provide input on some of the network design parameters, and found a number of items of consensus around what some of our key opportunities are, including that notification provides an important communication tool between growers and their communities, that a well-designed and timely notification system will empower community members to make informed decisions about protecting the health of their families, and that this information can provide more transparency about pesticide applications, and that this is an opportunity for additional outreach and education, generally speaking, about the requirements that are in place around pesticide use. And so we really appreciate those from Shafter, including steering committee members, community members, air districts who from both here and elsewhere that participated in the focus group process. What we're doing now is building on the feedback gathered at the focus groups through a series of public webinars and workshops later this year and into early 2022, and that public input will inform the design of a system and regulations in order to implement the advanced notification for certain kinds of pesticide applications. And we're currently, really focused on development right now and are looking at implementation in 2023-2024 approximate timeframe, and look forward to continuing to work with all of our partners, including the steering committee, and moving ahead with statewide notification. So I think with that, I'll hand it over to Glenn.
Oh, before we go to Glenn, let's pause, Karen, to see if there's any questions from the committee members around that statewide notification system or the feedback that you received from different groups, including Shafter folks. Any quick questions for Karen and her team before we move to Glenn? Anyone on the Spanish line? And we are welcoming the questions at the moment from the steering committee members. And Mark, I see your hand. You are welcome. Hold that thought. You are welcome to, I'll call you out during the public comment session. And Bianca is dropping the note in the chat. The state notification is different from the Shafter notification. And I assume that's a question, Bianca?
Yes, it's a question in regard. It's not a question. It's a comment. That for state, it's a 4-year process, and for Shafter, we have the money, the allocation ready to go. So we're just ready. What Glenn's going to be talking about now.
Okay, thanks, Bianca. Okay, what I'm sensing from this group, we have ready for Glenn. I do want to, before I pass to Glenn, I do want to circle back to Gustavo, and we asked this committee at the last meeting to share some of the questions in advance, and the intent was that this will be an open floor. You are welcome to ask additional questions above what you shared last time, but definitely there's 2 questions that we already collected from you.
Yeah, and I have a quick question for Karen before we move on. My understanding is that there is some focus groups that have been put together for the statewide notification. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and I think in that, just like briefly looking at the roster and some previous comments, you have obviously very diverse stakeholders, as it should be in a process like this. But just slightly concerning is like some comments from folks like Roger Isom, which I'm sure a lot of you guys know, who has, publicly and unauthentically claim that, you know, folks in the Salinas Valley have gone into fields to self-fumigations, right? Just wondering, like, have those kinds of comments been corrected in those focus groups? Is that something that has been clarified? I just think the last thing that we need is like misguided kind of information like that in focus groups. To be very clear, residents are not going into fields to stop fumigations.
So appreciate the question. And you know, the purpose of the focus groups for us was really as listening sessions to hear from people. So we're not looking to correct or amend specific statements that were made as a part of this. We do, what we're looking at for next steps is that we will be pulling together a summary of the feedback and comments received. And we are making sure that those summaries don't contain inflammatory language or comments that are summaries that are not accurate of what is happening within the system right now. And that, you know, we are really committed to looking to make a system that works. And so I think there's been a lot of really heated discussion in general about what notification looks like and what that means. And I think we are really committed to charting a course that is focused on the mission and the goals of the statewide system and is incorporating feedback, but doing so in a way that kind of reflects what's happening and to address concerns that reflect what's happening within the system.
Thank you for clearing that.
Okay, so clarifying that list of comments and questions is not necessarily, you're still analyzing those comments, you're going to be distilling them, identifying the themes, and definitely making sure those comments in general, those themes inform the system in general. Okay, well, I see no other questions for Karen, and I'm sure we are very excited to hear from Glenn. So I will turn it to Glenn. Hi, Glenn, and thank you for being here.
Sure, no problem.
Guys, I don't know if we want to start with those two questions or.
Sure, yeah. However, I'm not sure if Mr. Glenn wants to do just an introduction, but I think he was already been introduced.
Glenn, for those of you who don't know you, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure, my name's Glenn Fankhauser. I'm the Agricultural Commissioner Sealer for Kern County.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, Glenn, and appreciate you being on here and these two questions that I will be asked of you here. I think you already have forehand information on them, so thank you so much for hopefully thoroughly answering these. But for the rest of the folks that didn't see these, these were generated by residents and a group of I think we had an open meeting to see kind of discuss what questions would be good for Glenn to come on. And the first one, I'll read it out loud, is with the statewide pesticide notification system now in the works, as Karen just suggested, is the Agricultural Commissioner's Office working on notifications in Kern County ahead of the state's efforts?
The answer would be no, with a caveat that with the statewide notification, DPR is actively soliciting counties around the state to have pilot programs for notification, which will more than likely be different, so that they can get an estimation on what kind of notification system would work statewide. So we just like a lot of other ag commissioners are in talks with DPR about possibly doing one in Kern County, and that would probably occur in Shafter if it was to come to fruition.
Yeah, and I think Glenn, this is a great space, right, for something like that to happen. I think you have some great allies here, residents that are more than willing to work. So yeah, thank you for that.
Guys, I'm going to pause you for just a moment. Glenn, we do have a kind request in the chat box. If your internet speed allows, because I know sometimes it does not, the committee members would love if you can turn your camera off, but I know sometimes the internet is wonky, and with the camera off, you have better internet. So if you have a good internet, you are welcome to turn your camera on.
So being a good steward of the government money, I don't have a camera on my work computer. So.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, obviously these are just two questions that were thought of, but we'll open it up here. The second question, Glenn, is you know, with the funding support that the state put aside for notification, you know, what is the next level of notification? I think you barely touched the light on this potential pilot programs, but what would be the next level of notification look like in Shafter, right? Like I'm sure you and your staff has sat together, right? It's like, you know, what are three possible options of what a notification looks like, right? How will this notification process here in the Kern County office, like how will that phase out? Like how would you envision it, if you will, you at your department?
So that's a difficult question to answer because we don't have a notification project that's in the works. So I don't know how it would roll out. I wouldn't be able to answer that until we had one that we had decided on going forward with.
Yeah, thank you. And as I think as these questions rolled out, one of the comments were, you know, in this question too, like I think we've developed generally a really good program, speaking from a cohort of individuals from the Shafter CSC, not the entire Shafter CSC, have rolled out and very thoughtfully and thoroughly have put together you know, a phase out plan. So I would, you know, we would suggest you revisit it, take a look at it, and really look at the details of what you guys are thinking of, what the state potentially might roll out these pilot programs, and what has already been, you know, talked about here in this last year or so. And so I think, you know, really envisioning this question is like, we already do have a plan in front of us. We've made great suggestions. We've invested many hours and meetings to this. So, you know, I'm just not personally very satisfied with that answer, but I think we do have a lot in front of us to work on. So I would definitely suggest, you know, that you and your staff consider it, right? And if we need to revisit what that is, like the year of work that we invested to put this together, we need to revisit that today or later. I think we could definitely do that. That's something that's very doable, very straightforward plan, right? And I think as the conversation grows, we'll be able to suggest, you know, reasons of why this would be, you know, prompt use of our time, both for the Kern County Ag Commissioners, for the AB 617 Shafter, and then also to set precedent in the statewide pesticide notification moving forward. But I also see. Go ahead.
So to address that, I'd also like to point out that the notification pilot that I proposed, also my office put in a lot of work in coming up with that proposal. And I think it's understandable from my standpoint that there are certain aspects of what was suggested by the steering committee for a notification pilot that I'm not really willing to negotiate on. And so I think that's the standstill that we're at right now.
Yes, yeah, we definitely are. And I think, you know, I think there was a proposition from the CSC, and then there was a proposition from yourself. And then kind of those two were like, okay, well, I think we could do better. And, you know, we I think very intentionally revisited the first proposition that went out, right, that included all pesticides and all restricted use. And then we narrowed it down to a very specific group of pesticide use, restricted use chemicals, I'm sorry, with a very tangible distance. But then that was never retouched again. It was the same proposition that the first proposition that came out, right? So I think really what we're looking for is like this really intentional, meaningful, a new kind of proposition from the Ag commissioners that is different from just the very one proposition that was, it was either nothing or 100%, right, which was 100 feet and change it to 200 feet and door hangers, but not by the Ag commissioner, by the pesticide applicator, which is a third party. So there was a lot of flaws that were very visible there. So I think we're waiting, very patiently waiting for something new to come up, right? We sat down with the previous director, DPR, John Moore, we all sat down and had these conversations. But yeah, definitely still very patiently waiting for something more developing, right, to come up with. We don't know what the state's going to come up with, right? You set up a plan. We set up several phases of a rollout. And so I think that's really where we're at currently in this situation, if I'm not mistaken, unless I've missed something.
So, Gus, I'm unaware of a second offer from the steering committee. I'm just as patiently waiting for somebody to contact me about a new proposal. I haven't received any phone calls at my office, so I'm unaware of this, what you're saying, other than if you're just saying that it was backing off of all restricted materials and just having a list of fumigants. That's something that I can analyze, but if that's the only change, it's unlikely that I'm going to accept that either.
Thanks, Glenn. So what I'm hearing, and Gus, correct me if I'm wrong, keeping honest here, there's been two pilot project notifications that Glenn and the CSC group worked on. And looks like both worked very hard on those. So there was one round of discussions, and I think there's a miscommunication about the second rounds. And can we clarify that?
Yeah, I mean, the second phase included, a rally in front of Mr. Glenn's office, residents going to the Board of Supervisors, letters to the editor. But I could gather all that up and be more than happy to send it out for sure. Yeah, so we could start revisiting that again. It was just months ago, but yeah, very happy to do so. And I think the residents, really open it up to the residents. I feel like I'm taking a lot of time, but I'll open it up to the residents so they could also provide some of the information that they have also been providing.
I see the hand from Bianca, and I see a hand from Michelle. And before I go to Bianca and Michelle, just want to clarify another thing that I've heard from Glenn, mentioning that he is not aware of the second proposal, but he is happy to take a look at that. And you can contact the office about that new proposal. Glenn, is that correct?
Yes, but I'm unsure what, I'm willing to entertain anybody's willing to call me and talk to me personally or come in and visit anytime. I don't know if what Gustavo is referencing is something that's an official decision from the CSC, or if we're just talking about random statements about what certain members of the CSC would be in favor of. So when I say that I'm not aware of any proposal, I don't think there was any kind of proposal that the steering committee came up with.
Yeah, I think this is one of the space to clarify the communication a little bit. Glenn, committee members, thank you for being here. Thank you for asking and answering those questions. But one of the things we can achieve here today as a group is clarify communication a little bit and how can we move forward. So what I'm hearing from Glenn, that you are welcome, you're open to phone calls and conversations, you are keeping your door in a way open. Bianca and then Michelle.
Yes, I do have a couple questions for Glenn. Right now, you mentioned that you are only discussing, you're only open to the discussion of having door hangers on residents by a certain amount. You're doubling it what the label states on the T-loan application. But yet last year, there was an exceeding levels of T-loan, and the closest application was 7 miles away. If the DPR monitor picked that up, that is very, it's a warning sign for community residents that are being poisoned in a daily basis. Maybe it was an illegal application, or maybe the amount of pounds used in that square, in that field, was so exceeding that it picked up in the DPR monitor. Another thing, I think what Gustavo was trying to mention is that residents came out, and you mentioned it at the Board of Supervisors, that residents were not participating while they've been in numerous amounts of meetings before even the whole process was being approved by CARB. And you're dismissing all their work, all their effort, all their time they've been putting for this notification to happen. And you literally told the Board of Supervisors that it didn't came from residents, while residents were pushing that since the beginning. So that's another comment and another question that I have for you. Why are you questioning residents' work when they've put so many times and so many efforts, as you've seen multiple times? If they didn't really care about this issue, they wouldn't be out in the Board of Supervisor or talking to the CARB board members. They are doing the work, but they're not receiving the respect from the Ag Commissioner. Another thing, essentially,
Bianca, do we want to pause and maybe take one question at a time? So the comment is about door hangers, and it's incredibly important topic to the residents. So the question about the door hangers. So thanks for answering that, Glenn.
I'm not sure there was a question there about door hangers. I think it was just a statement. I think
it's a question for you, Glenn, because there was an application that was done 7 miles away, and yet it exceeded in the DPR monitor.
Bianca, I do want to do a quick reminder to keep the tone of our conversation very respectful. This is the space to have this conversation, so let's appreciate that we have this space, and let's be civil and respectful.
So there was a high level of 1,3-D that was found by a DPR air monitor. What is your question?
That the application was, the nearest application was done 7 miles away, yet the DPR monitor picked it up. That is alarming, because you're giving out residents you're essentially offering the residents a door hanger that is only 200 feet away from any T-loan application. If there was an exceeding application 7 miles away, what does it guarantee you 200 feet? That is going to make a big change. So that is my question. What comment do you have about that? Because that is alarming for even public health to know that if an application was done 7 miles away and it's still picked up in a DPR monitor, how is the Ag Commissioner going to respond?
Well, the way that we responded is working hand in hand with DPR. That's what initiated a pilot project for the 1,3-D monitoring study. That's what they're continuing to work on now in Kern, as well as I believe 3 other counties in the Valley, to try and determine why that happened. There was not, as far as we can tell, there was not any illegal application. There wasn't anything that was done incorrectly. And so that's why DPR wants to look into it to see why is it that they got those readings? If everything was done above board and everything was done correctly, why did they get those readings? So that's the purpose of the 1,3-D monitoring study that I think DPR has already released the data at least a couple of meetings ago, maybe.
I don't want to put DPR on the spot, but I wonder if any of you can chime in, because what I'm hearing, this is an incredibly important issue for the residents, that question of application, 200 feet versus 7 miles, and how it's picking up. I wonder if you can chime in on that and clarify, or maybe provide additional information.
Sure. So I think there's number of different pieces that tie in there that I just want to touch on.
Thank you, Karen.
So one, and I think that the broader point here of what distance is appropriate for notification is a really important one. And I think one that we don't, as we're thinking about sort of statewide, we don't have what those distances are in mind just yet. That's part of the design process that we're working through. But I think that, there's a lot that we know about what happens around applications and movement. I'm so sorry, my kid's crying outside the door and I want to make sure he's not about to come in.
Okay, it's here to a virtual meeting.
Well, welcome to evening meetings. But so looking at how we think about sort of distances and what data we've collected and also recognizing that our sort of monitoring to modeling is not perfect. And so there are things that we do to try to refine that and are continuing to work through. I think Glenn's comments about what we're looking at for monitoring and additional application methods is right on. So this is something that we are spending quite a bit of time right now as a part of our pilots of looking at other application methods that provide emission reductions that are comparable to TIF tarping so that we have other options. To think about what kind of applications can occur that will have lower risk of emissions and lower potential exposure for those who live and work near where those applications are happening. So I think it's sort of multiple pieces that we're trying to move through, both in terms of identifying what the statewide notification will look like, also how that will inform what, if any, pilots that we look at, as well as the mitigation work that's going on.
So Karen, what I think I'm hearing, this issue, this concern with considering as well and looking at the feedback you're getting from your stakeholders and figuring out how to monitor additional application methods to address those additional concerns that Bianca is mentioning in Shafter, and perhaps you're hearing the same concerns from other communities. And I see you nodding. It's okay. Bianca, I know, Michelle, thank you for your patience. I know Bianca have one more question or maybe two. Bianca, back to you.
Glenn, you mentioned right now that you're not open to any type of discussion on notification, yet DPR sent you a letter back in December. We only heard from you that you're only willing to do door hangers, and to be honest, it's money that is going to be run down really fast. You already have a sustainable notification at the moment, the grower to grower. Even the state DPR in the focus group mentioned it as a form of example that we could use, a model that we could use because you created that. And the only thing residents and EJ advocates, I'm counting myself in there, have been requesting is to have the same model that you are using to the grower to grower. Why are growers allowed to know what the neighbor is spraying, the other farmer is spraying? Why does industry have the right to know, but residents that are being affected in a daily basis?
I think that was, you got the question, Glenn?
Sure.
Great, thanks.
So we developed that notification, the grower to grower notification, specifically for the purpose of protecting farm workers, because we had several episodes of drift, and we thought that was going to put another tool in the arsenal, the toolbox of the growers to be able to open up communication with their neighbors. Now, from a standpoint of is that something that the residents also need to have that information, or do they have a right to that information? That's not really up to me to decide that, but you can use our model of communication as an example of how residents could also communicate with the growers that they live around. We have several growers who do that already. They have good relationships with people that have houses and live near the fields where they're going to do applications, and they go out of their way to let those residents know when they're going to treat. So that's something that really could be done outside of the ag commissioner. I'm not needed for that.
But you created that model for other growers to know. And the only thing residents have been asking is the notice of intent. That is the best notification when there's an application that is going to happen. I know there's a window for 3 days of an application, but those 3 days, residents and people out here in the community that live in the surrounding areas could take the precautionary items to prevent any type of exposure. You created that grower to grower notification because there were incidents that did happen, but yet residents don't know if the cause of an asthma attack or a respiratory problem or any type of problem, health problem, is related or correlated to any type of exposure. Why? Because we don't have nothing at the moment that is a transparent as a grower to grower notification.
So to address that point, that's not true. If there's a resident that has a problem and they suspect that it could be pesticide related, we have pesticide use data that we post and we update as it comes in. So a resident is always able to see what applications were made in their area of what materials. So that's not really the issue. What you're talking about is notification ahead of time. And I've always contended that the notification argument is a statewide argument. And I think that's why Karen is here today, because we're talking about Shafter being the catalyst that opened up the conversation for statewide notification. And now there's monies available. Yes, it's going to take a while, but that's just the way that the process has to work. So I think that's really addressing the issue with the statewide.
Thanks,
But Glenn, you have the most current
Blanca, your internet is breaking up.
information when and is going to be done. You're after the application was made. Hello?
Bianca, your internet is breaking up a little bit, so if you don't mind to repeat that question or comment, please, thank you. And then we're gonna go to Michelle. Thank you for your patience, Michelle.
I do have a comment in regards to the notification. You Glenn have the best way to get the notification. Things that are going to be exposure of what the exposure is going to happen in the community of Shafter. The state does not have that. The state has it after the fact that people have been exposed, and residents are not allowed to take the precautionary items when the exposure is going to happen. So the key player here at this moment is you. The state, the city, all have been in collaboration trying to make this notification possible. The only person that is refusing for this notification to happen is the Kern County Ag Commissioner. So it's just the last comment that I have to say, or how can you address this?
I don't disagree with you, but all I can say is that I feel that it's for something that's not, first of all, we don't have a history of violations that would necessitate a special permit condition to initiate this notification in the way that's desired. It's true, we already have an existing grower-to-grower notification. That's not a one-to-one program that can be extrapolated to residents. So it could be used as a template, but it's not a turnkey operation that I could immediately say, okay, now it's applicable to all residents who want to sign up. And I also feel that, from the standpoint of me as an ag commissioner, it's unfair to require this of growers in Kern County if it's not required of growers in any other county. And I think that's a good argument.
Thanks, Glenn, for responding to Bianca's and I assume other folks, other residents' questions and comments. Michelle, you've been very patient. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, I have a couple comments and questions also myself. I am a farmer in the Shafter area, and I do believe that it is the farmer's responsibility to notify when we spray restricted materials. And I do my hardest job. I don't even want to go out there and say I'm perfect, because I am not, to let them know when we spray, because they hang out people in our neighborhood or next to us hang out laundry. They walk their dogs in our field. And I do not want any exposure, because I don't want the ag commissioner at my door ever. And so we work really hard at it, but it's very hard. It took us a very long time to collect telephone numbers of people. I don't have emails. Some people, and then you knock on their door, they don't open your door because they don't want to. Who are you? What are you doing there? And so, but it is my responsibility as a good steward to my neighbors to take care of them. Now, and so we work really hard on that, but I know not everybody is conscientious. But the grower to grower is based off of emails. And the only reason we have the emails of our next grower is because they've signed up for their ag permit. So that does create some unique situations. How do we get an email to somebody else? And things change really rapid in personal people's lives. We're kind of stayed and true. So there are some things that are out there that have to be worked on. And so I just want to say that up front. I look at this a little differently. And then I'm a little, we talk about residents, we talk about our community, and then we talk about the CSC. And I want to make sure that when what we're talking about is when our voice from our community is one thing. My voice as a resident may be totally different than everybody else's. But when we talk about what our voice is for this group that we are on Zoom right now, we all have to make sure we're in accordance, and that the letter isn't just from half of us. We all need to make sure we're on the same page to make sure we are in accordance on what we're saying. And so I just I'm not really sure what letters. I've gone back and I was late to the game, so I'm not sure where all the letters are, and I've seen some of them, but I just want to make sure that our voice is together as a community in our CSC, and that we decide how we want to go forward together to make sure that all of just because you're a resident, your voice may not say the same as this voice. So we just want to make sure we're all in good, and that we keep the communications open with the ag commissioner, and that we try to figure out some common ground that can make this happen. There are some unique circumstances, and how do you get them information to the people who need the information, not just people who are wanting to do different stuff with it. So that's just what I was saying. And so I guess I really didn't have a question, it was just more of a comment. And I would love to see the last proposal too. I don't know if I've forgotten that. I have Zoom brain and, COVID brain, that stuff seems so long ago. So I'd love to see that paperwork too. And I hope that I appreciate everybody has done a lot of work on this, and I appreciate both sides. And I hope that we can keep the communication open. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well said, Michelle, and right on point. Diverse voices in the room, but definitely on the way to finding that common ground. And one of the ways to find the common ground, just to keep those dialogues open. And today's meeting is an example how can we keep the dialogue open. So thank you all the partners being in the room. Gustavo, I've noticed you nodding as Michelle was speaking. What are some thoughts and reactions?
Yeah, no, thank you to Michelle, Bianca, Glenn, everyone for participating. I just have a couple of like very clarifying statements. Is like, unless I'm totally wrong, please someone correct me. As a steering committee, we've only approved two things: the camp and the SERP, collectively as a whole, right? From there, there has been letters that we've wrote in as a group or a cohort of folks, and it's been very obvious. There's signatories at the bottom of each letter. Just that's clear, right? Like there's no mistake beyond that. To Glenn, to kind of address some of the conversation that we had, I really do hope that you don't believe that they're just a bunch of random statements that have been made by residents. We literally have sent you all the letters, Glenn. The signatories are on there, and the second proposal, if you will, that was sent out was to simply on the web put the notice of intent. Right. I hope you remember that. And the letters that have been sent to you have always been copied, right? So I really hope that you don't think these are random statements from random people. These are people in the steering committee meetings. These are people that are on the Zoom now that are residents, right? And so I want to make that very clear. The other thing, was the pesticide use report, Glenn. I have a question. I know that it exists. I don't know much about it. Are those posted daily, weekly, monthly, annually? What's the frequency of reporting for the pesticide use reports, like the historical ones?
Well, the growers are required to submit use reports by the 15th of the month following the month of the application took place.
Okay.
But Gustavo, I'd like to address the issue about if I've gotten any letters. And the fact is that I've only received, am I aware of letters? I'm aware of the letters. But I've only been CC'd or given a specific letter on the day when there was a protest at my office. That's the only time a letter was specifically written to me. And it was by CRPE and CCEJN, not the Shafter Steering Committee. Any other letters written by representatives of the Shafter Steering Committee were written to the state, whether that's CARB, whether that's DPR, whether that's Cal EPA. They're not written to me.
But you read them, right? You went through them and you read them.
Right, but that doesn't address the fact that they're not written to me.
Got it. And the other thing that I wanted to clear up was you mentioned like this trigger of history of violations that doesn't like trigger like this notification. Can you talk more about that? Where does that like where are you referencing like who has triggered a history of violations and then triggers a pesticide notification system? I would really love to check that out.
I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but that's why we have our notification system, because there was a high-profile incident in Arvin, Lamont. So that's the history.
Sorry if it was confusing. The conversation about the statewide notification, like how it should be like a centralized state thing and not like an individual Kern County thing, and then you referenced that Kern County doesn't have the history of violations to trigger something like that. So I just thought there was something already that exists that I was unaware of.
No, realistically, if I was to implement a notification system in Kern County, the vehicle to do that is through permit conditions. So I would place restrictions on the restricted materials permits that are issued to growers. And that restriction would be to require them to have community notification or public notification. So generally speaking, that the purpose of that system was set up by the state so that there could be localized conditions to address certain issues that might come up regionally. So what I'm saying is, I've been specifically asked to provide notification in the 7-mile buffer around Shafter. And in order for me to justify that, I would have to have a history of violations that would make me want to make that change. I don't have a history of violations that stand out from the rest of the county or the rest of the state that makes me think, hey, there's something weird going on over here. I need to address it with local permit conditions. So I think that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. You definitely touched on it. And I mean, I think we could, because I mean, as I read 617, it's obviously to prevent, right, and improve, but also mitigate any potential air contamination, right? And so I think we're in the mitigate phase, and I think pesticides or notification will really serve a good purpose. And I think Karen, I think you're right. A person of interest in this situation, because I really think Glenn, you could call on Karen, you call on Glenn on so we're in this imaginary phase right now of oh, we're going to figure out what a pesticide notification looks like. Well, Kern County has a relatively great pesticide notification between grower to grower, right? How do we expand that, right? How do we put Glenn in the driving seat where he could be his department could be someone that really sets forward and is a pilot, right, at the statewide level for a pesticide notification, given that Tulare, Fresno, Kern use the most pesticide, beyond anyone else in the state of California. And so really this unfairness, if you will, Glenn, of overburdening growers or your office per se in this. I think we should really kind of set the precedent in that, and then maybe Karen talk about how you could plug Glenn into all right, we have this pesticide, we have this grower to grower notification, list it down, and how do we amplify this? How does Kern in potentially Shafter be the pilot of how pesticide notification moves forward, right? And so I think we're in this position where we could be doing so much great, right? But I think there's different stuff that prevents us from doing that. So I want to be very mindful that, we have state partners here, we have regional partners, right? And Glenn, if there is any letters that you haven't read that you want to, I want us to resend, we would be more than happy to, so we can start looking at how we actually deploy this here in Shafter.
Okay, I want to do a quick time check. We're at 6:33. I do see 2 hands from Annabelle and Bianca. So this is what I'm hearing, a quick recap so far. Definitely residents' health is definitely a concern here. Back to Michelle's point, she says when the pesticides go out, she wants to notify her residents who live nearby. She doesn't want them to walk the dog or dry their laundry. So to Glenn's point, this notification farmer to farmer exists, but not necessarily notifications to the residents. However, some of the communication models that he's aware of works where farmers actually take a chance and notify those residents. And that's something that Michelle is referring, that she does that as a grower. That's her practice because she doesn't want a commissioner knock on her door. So, but the bigger issue here for this committee, how the residents can be notified. And this is one of the few times where we had this open dialogue, in-depth dialogue. And I think it's one of the first steps where these conversations need to continue happen in the room. We don't have many hours of this meeting, so we'll need to keep going. However, I'll go back to Annabelle and then Bianca. And with those 2 questions, comments, I hope you can help us to wrap up this agenda item. Again, this is just the beginning, not the end of this dialogue and conversation. So thanks for your patience. Annabelle.
Gracias, Ale. Me gustaría que le hubieras dado la oportunidad al señor Glenn de contestarle a Gustavo el comentario que hizo. Esa es una cosa.
I would like for Glenn to have an opportunity to respond to Gustavo.
¿Se congeló? Ok. Mi pregunta es para el señor Glenn. Él desea, bueno, por una parte, gracias por estar con nosotros, porque ya teníamos muchas juntas que nuestro deseo era de saberlo y escucharlo, aunque pues otra vez no sabemos ni quién es, porque no le miramos su cara. Pero gracias, señor Glenn. Mi pregunta es, ¿a usted le gustaría que nosotros, el comité, le mandemos una carta con nuestras firmas y lo que nos gustaría cómo nos diera la notificación? Si es así, por favor, déjeme su dirección, su correo electrónico o como quiera usted que nosotros el comité nos comuniquemos con usted. Crea que esté seguro de que cualquier cosa que usted quiera saber del comité, se lo daremos a saber. Muchas gracias y ojalá que algún día podamos verlo bien o personalmente. Gracias. Buenas tardes.
Yes, and the comment is for Glenn, that if you would like for us to send you a letter with the signatures, and also how will you notify us, and if you want us to send us the notification, how can we send you our letters with all the signatures? And also, if hopefully one day we can meet you and greet you, because we can not even see your face, but also really thank you for being with us today, and thank you for listening to my comment.
Que ponga su dirección o su correo electrónico para que llegue directamente a él y no llegue a otra oficina equivocada.
Please share with us your personal information, so we won't send our information to someone else. That'll be your email or any other information that you have.
So my office has been in the same location for over 20 years. I'm here. My phone is able to be answered by me every day. Anybody can make an appointment to come and see me. But to be honest, I have the same question as you, Annabelle, because I don't know what letters I need to respond to, because I get the letters that I've seen have a heading of the steering committee, but as far as I know, it's not from the steering committee as an official body. So I don't know what I need to respond to. Now, would you like me to respond to every letter that somebody forwards to me? Sure, I could do that. Tell me how.
And I think there's two things are happening here. So this committee has discussed what the letter from the committee, official letter from the committee or on behalf of the committee or from individual members. So definitely communication moving forward. Correct me if I'm wrong, Gustavo, I'm gonna look at you, but we've discussed what does it mean to send a letter from the committee. So there's a little bit more clarity what the letter is from. There has been some confusion in the past.
Yes, and I think we've had a conversation with Ryan and other folks to clarify that. So I think if that needs to be addressed further, just let us know.
Yeah. Bianca, we are at 6:40. Let's with your last question, last comment, help me to close this agenda item, and then I'm going to turn it to Ryan for final thoughts and perhaps next steps. Bianca, what is your question or comment?
I have a comment, and I want Glenn to clarify his comment that he is not open for any type of discussion on notification that regards any type of NOI. Is that true or is that false?
I never said that. I've always said that I'm open to continuing that conversation, and I think Karen can probably agree with that.
And another thing, maybe this is a comment, but wouldn't you want to be the pilot notification and even went into your office. I know he came out numerous amount of times, even throughout the pandemic, and offered DPR, offered their services to publicize the NOIs in their website, but the only person that was holding that back was you in regards publicizing notice of intent for air toxic contaminants that were only for pesticides. You refused it back in January, February. Would you be open to that discussion, or you're still closed-minded of not wanting to do that notification?
I think I've been very clear from the beginning, and I think one of your favorite quotes of mine is that I don't believe in notification. And that's true. I still don't believe in notification, and I don't think I ever will believe that it will accomplish what you believe it will. Nevertheless, even though I don't believe in notification, it didn't stop me from making the offer that I did. So I've never said that I'm not open to any discussion. I'm completely open to any discussion. But as I said, there are basic tenets that I'm not willing to negotiate on.
But yet there's still a grower-to-grower notification.
Right. And to your point about wouldn't I want Kern to be the pilot, Kern has been the pilot. For over 15 years, we continue to be the only county in the world that has a grower-to-grower notification. So we've been in the forefront, and we've already saddled our growers with that. So that's a further reason why I'm kind of reluctant. Why should it be Kern again?
The money's here in Shafter. The residents have fought for it for more than 2 years, for it to be dismissed that way.
So for me, it's not a funding issue for me.
Okay, well, we definitely had good conversations. A lot of questions have been asked. Glenn, thank you for answering some of the questions. Thank you, CSC members, for sharing your comments, your questions. I think this is definitely was a good space to start this dialogue. And Gustavo, correct me if I'm wrong, what I've heard over the course of this evening is Glenn is open to further communication and further discussion. I see you're smiling. Glenn, if you can drop your contact information per Annabelle and perhaps other members. But again, not necessarily we come to the resolution today, but we definitely have a better understanding where we are, better understanding different concerns, better understanding how different pieces and different players come to this puzzle and plug into this notification system, and what Kern County, a commissioner can do, a state can do, what are the main needs of the residents, what a growers can do in terms of specific notifications to its residents. So definitely kind of mapping out that issue a little bit better and clarifying some of the questions, perhaps some of the timelines, some of the confusions that you had. Gustavo, I'm going to turn it to you. What are some of your reflections?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm not quite sure how much times we will have to have this conversation, right? Where like we initiate some good thought, but nothing ever follows up. And you know, the fact that Glenn, you personally have stated that you don't believe in notifications, but yet you're in this like pro notification, first world, only world kind of thing. Is very discerning, because I hear stuff like it's unfair for the growers. We're the only ones, and I won't. Yeah, so I really believe that the residents, right? Not everyone believes this, right? We some of us live in different silos, right? But I really think that this program, AB 617, that is a community-driven program, right? That is thoughtful, that talks about innovation and mitigation and prevention. The fact that this blind thought that, and I'm not talking about you, Glenn, but I'm talking about like this blind thought that if I change one thing, nothing's, it's not going to prevent anything, or it's not going to improve anyone's life, right? Like that needs to be challenged, and it really needs to be thought out, right? Like we need to actually practice and do it before we like. When I try to get my kids to eat veggies, they're just like, no, 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 right? And then once they try, they're like, oh, it's not that bad, right? So I think we need to get something on them, like we've just, and we'll continue to discuss this, and we'll continue to share. We'll revise whatever letter we need to revise and personally send it to you, Glenn, so we could have these conversations. But I really think that like we've definitely tailored our ask from the beginning, and we'll ask the residents like what else are they willing to give up. And I really think, Glenn, that you and your office should come to an understanding of at some point this will happen, right? Whether you want it or not, the state's going to shove some program down someone's throat, right? Why not get ahead of it and be innovative in the space where like you work with residents and growers, right? To create something like this, right? Maybe everything that we've done, everything that the residents have done is not worthy of being looked at, but maybe we could sit down again and again have this, initial conversation and go from there. So kind of that's where I'll leave it at that. And yeah, congratulations to Val, right? Someone that we also called on and kind of fell a little short, but that's all I have to say on this matter. It's something that I don't want to leave just like this. This is a conversation that needs to continue, right? And will continue to happen inside and outside of AB 617 and Shafter. And we have folks here that have been doing this for decades, for both inside of government and outside of government. So I'm pretty sure we can come to some kind of, understanding of what medium could be presented that is successful and gives the residents the ability to make personal choices, right? This is something that our whole country has been talking about, personal choices, right? I think to have the understanding of I have a personal choice whether to take my dogs out, whether to take my children out, whether to go for a walk, whether to do a grocery run. I don't think that should be ripped and taken away from the residents, right? The residents spoke very loud and clear, and I think we should continue this conversation.
Thanks, Gustavo. Ryan, do you want to help me to wrap up this item and talk a little bit about next steps and how can we continue this dialogue and how this steering committee space meetings can create space for additional dialogue?
Yeah, no, I think Gus very eloquently stated the hopefulness of this, and I really appreciate Karen coming on tonight and talking about the how the movement on this began, and I mean this is what AB 617 is about, right? It's about changes, and I know that the CERT measure is specific to Shafter. But at the same time, this is not only an issue that's facing Shafter residents, but as well as other places across the state. And so, in fact, from the work that this committee has done is resulting in a conversation that's happening at the state level. I think that's a huge progress, and that should be recognized and applauded. And that's not to say that we're not going to continue to keep space here and these meetings to continue to talk about this, and appreciate Glenn coming on and sharing a willingness to continue to discuss this. And I hope everybody takes the opportunity to continue to engage with Glenn on this important issue, and working with us, ARB, and the Department of Pesticide Regulations, and Glenn, as well as all of the continuing to work with this community steering committee. So I understand that there's some tough questions that were being asked today. I think they were fair questions, and I think it was a productive dialogue. That a lot of information was shared, and people's thoughts and concerns were raised, and I just appreciate everybody speaking to this issue. And so yeah, definitely going to continue to discuss this moving forward. So thank you.
Thanks, Ran. Thank Gus. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Karen, and your team for being here. And thank you for steering committee members for your commitment, for your passion, your care. Thank you for being here and asking all your questions. Great conversation in terms of being in this space and talking about it. Okay, we're terribly behind on time. See what we can do our magic to end on time. Let's go quickly through our standing updates. Anything on air monitoring? And I see, Chai, you are turning your camera on.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Yeah, just some brief updates on with air monitoring. So we have only one location left to deploy at, and that's at Mexican Colony. We've been working very closely with Kern County on this. And so, you know, there's been one step after another. And so the first one was they were still getting city approval. So now that's completed. And that's really just for phase one. And what that means is that that's only for the grading and compacting of the land and general approval. So there's another step, which is phase two, which includes the electrical work on there. So without electrical work, we're not able to get this installed. So just based on my last conversation with them last week, they're still waiting to figure out when they're going to be able to get that completed. So they'll once they get a little bit more clarity on that, they'll get back to us. And so it has been taking a little bit of time there. Because of that, we're also exploring again other locations within Mexican Colony. So if any of you know of any residents or any other locations nearby that you think that we could put the monitor there, it takes a very small footprint. So if you know of any locations or anybody who may be interested in us installing a monitor on their property, please let me know, and we're definitely continue to be interested.
I'm sorry, what region are you guys looking for? Is there a specific region or just like in general in the 7 mile radius?
No, just in Mexican Colony.
Oh, okay, the Mexican Colony.
Yeah. And that's the only one that we have left.
Okay.
Okay, because we're running a little bit of time. Any questions for Chai, please drop them in the chat box and he will answer those. In addition,
and I know we're running out of time. Just really quick, just
yes,
so the community knows. For those of you who may have looked at been tracking the air monitoring charts, you probably noticed that we saw some spikes, especially at the Farm Labor Center, and we are aware of that. We looked through the cameras for during that time and can't really see anything in there. We've sent an inspector out, so it's been happening in the morning time. So we are continuing to keep an eye on that, and when we find out what's going on, we'll definitely let the CSC know what's happening there. And also notice some elevated PM10 at the Shafter DMV as well too. So we're investigating that and have sent compliance staff out to take a look at. But right now we haven't seen anything, but we're going to continue to monitor that, and we'll keep you updated. And that's it for my update. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Chai. Okay, questions for Chai, please drop them in the chat box. And if you can think about locations for additional monitors in Mexican Colony on folks' properties, drop the suggestions in the chat box or follow up after the meeting. Scott, what this group needs to know from CARB today?
Actually, the main thing I want to do is just give a nice shout out to the city of Shafter and Michael James and his team for putting together the rail crossings kind of service request portal in the Shafter app. And so I'll let him maybe talk a little bit more about it since it's their brainchild, but I thought it was a very creative, responsive solution to the community request or concern about rail crossings. And so just wanted to, I guess, acknowledge the efforts there and thought that it was a great solution. And that's really all I have today.
Thanks, Scott. Michael, I see you on camera, ready to talk. Hello.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Scott, for the acknowledgement, and thank you for your suggestions. For those who don't know, the city of Shafter added a reporting feature to the existing Shafter mobile app, which you could download on the Google Play Store and Apple App Store. This particular new feature will allow residents to report issues with at-grade rail crossings, such as a crossing arm that's down with no train, or a train that's simply stalled at a location. And you can enter in a specific location, upload photos, upload videos, and this information will get to the city as well as the CPUC. So feel free to explore that and use it if you see any issues with at-grade rail crossings. And just for the benefit of the group, we're still exploring the possibilities for electric vehicle charging stations. We've actually been contacted by a company by the name of EVCS to look at some options for city park sites, as well as our job centers, including the wonderful industrial park and Minter Field. And then we did execute a contract with KernCog, our metropolitan planning organization, to we received grant funding to install up to 3 charging stations that would charge city vehicles. And then we'll be working with district staff to see if we could add publicly accessible charging stations in the near future. And then finally, we have CMAQ projects that are active and could potentially benefit from AB 617 funding, including a Santa Fe Way shoulder project and a roundabout engineering and environmental project at the intersection of Beach and Los Angeles, where a roundabout is planned. And that concludes city updates.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Michael, for sharing those updates. And will you be dropping in the chat the link to submit those information about trains, things like that?
Yeah, certainly. It'll be a mobile app based. And so if people want to just type in Shafter Mobile at their Google Play Store or the Apple Store, and you should be able to pick it up and download it on your mobile device, or you could use it on your desktop as well.
Excellent, thank you. And Heather already dropped those links. Any quick updates from the Kern County? Alexa, do you have anything for the greater good of the group tonight?
No new updates. We submitted the CMAQ application for the Mexican colony sidewalks, just waiting to hear back.
Thank you. Okay, let's go into, again, for all the updates, quick, drop your questions in the chat box so we can end this meeting on time. Okay, let's go to our public comments. Heather, do we have any questions or comments on YouTube or Facebook?
We do not, Hannah.
Okay, this is a good time for you folks who are on the Zoom. Please raise your blue hand and ask your question or make a comment. And I know we had a person at the beginning of the meeting wanted to chime in, so this is a good time. And if you are participating from your phone, press *9. Okay, I think that person is no longer with us. I think he left. Okay, so our next meeting is October 11th, second Monday of the month via Zoom, same time at 5 p.m. I'm gonna do my very last ever public spiel to volunteer to be a community co-host. And speaking of community co-host, let's give Gus a virtual round of applause, everyone. He did a fantastic job as everything. Thank you, Gus. The committee is very lucky to have you as a community co-host. No pressure for the next meeting. It can be a little bit less, a little bit more participation. We're always working with you to see what makes the most meaningful and positive opportunity for you to co-host. So do we have any volunteers for the next meeting? Anyone? Okay, well, drop your name in the chat if you would like to volunteer, and we're going to ask you the same question during agenda setting meeting. Gus, any community co-host wrap up?
No, just thank you very much, Hannah, to you and your entire team for the facilitation work that you guys did. Greatly appreciate that. I think we collectively accomplished a lot of great stuff, so I very much appreciate that.
Thank you so much, folks. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here with my team to facilitate these meetings. I cannot believe we are wrapping up this meeting, having this kind of open dialogue for the very first time. I think we have a great start for this committee to continue making exciting progress, and so much progress has been shared today. You guys are doing awesome, very dedicated, extremely hardworking and passionate individuals. You personally inspire me to do better in life with your dedication and passion for your community. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having us, the ILG team, the Air District. Thanks, and we will see you around. We're still going to be working probably with the city of Shafter and other cities because that's what we do, helping to promote local government and make them better. Thank you so much. Ryan, any final words before we adjourn this meeting?
Just a huge thanks to you, Hannah, and Kim, and the rest of ILG. Couldn't have asked for a better facilitation team to help us through these last several years. So I know you're going to be sad to be leaving. I know you've built great relationships with all the community steering committee members, and I know they'll miss you and wish you the best. So yeah.
Thank you. You're in good hands, and I cannot wait to see what you guys are going to achieve a couple years from now. Thank you all. It's been a pleasure, and good night.